financial reports and accounting is basically in the hands of AG, Accountant General, which is, I mean, who is under the Ministry of Finance. Right, so they have to develop all the relevant accounting operation procedures, okay, including accounting standards to comply in the reporting as well as in the accounting process. Okay, of course, this has been discussed earlier in the beginning of the class, so it's a quick review on the government accounting machinery. Right, so remind yourself on the controlling officers, okay, they are responsible to keep the accounts, and then the accountants, the treasury, the accountants general. Then with regards to system and procedures, okay, Federal Constitution itself has provisioned for the accounts and the annual reports, the detail provided under the Financial Procedures Act, okay, and then Audit Act. So we have MPSAS as well as Treasury Instruction Circulars. So the MPSAS is the accounting standards. Okay. Right, the role of Treasury, I think you can read this. I think we discussed that before. Accountants General. I think now we are discussing on the financial reporting to prepare quality public accounts in accordance with legal and professional requirements. So you can see that the source of the compliance to the standards or the reporting, okay, one, of course, they use the best practice following the accounting standards. Same time, there are also legal provisions. Okay, either it is provided in the constitutions, in the Financial Procedures Act, right, need to be complied with. And of course, I mean, for government organizations, the legal requirements take precedence over professional standards, okay, in the case that there is conflicting. All right. Okay, controlling officers, I think we discussed about that. So his responsibility as well, including, okay, of course, the execution, the performance of the budget, as well as the accounting part of it and reporting. So at the end, controlling officers have to be accountable to the Parliament. So every year they have to be scrutinized by the Public Account Committee based on the audited financial report. Okay, accounting officers. Okay, I can go through this. Basically, those accountants working for controlling officers, and as well as the accountants in AG. I mean, this is all applicable to all three levels of governments: the federal government, the state government, as well as the local government. Okay, so these are the accounting cycle. I think we discussed on the budget. Now we move to the financial reports. And of course, AG is preparing the financial statements, consolidated financial statements to be audited, as well as for the Parliament. Okay, so we are on this side. Okay, legal framework, one more time, Federal Constitution, and then all these. So then lastly, if you look at, so these are new, was not mentioned before, because these are the accounting standards for public sector organizations, basically adopted through standards issued by IFACT. Okay, so under the board, under IFAS board, for the public sector accounting standards. Of course, in terms of the how this was developed based on IFRS or MFRS, so the same language used, okay, used in the MFRS or IFRS, so same language used in the MPSAS, except that it's been possibly summarized or modified to make sure that it's relevant to public sector organizations. Right, in the constitutions, okay, we talk about the revenue, expenditures, okay, budgets and financial statements. So all these provisions are there. Okay, the Financial Procedures Act, so the type of accounts need to be provided: revenue, trust, loans, yearly accounts, okay, expenditures, and control of consolidated funds. Okay, all these provisions are in the Financial Procedures Act. I think it's good to have a copy of this Financial Procedures Act. Let me see. Last time I tried to show this. I think, did I, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, so these are the Financial Procedures Act. Right, so you can see the provision there, consolidated fund, so clearly mentioned, and the type of accounts need to be provided. Okay, so I think it's good that you can refer to this. You don't have to memorize. So, I mean, this kind of statutes, yeah, I think, yeah. For the exam, yeah. Huh? Can you check? For statute, okay, yeah. If there is, this is a provision. Trust fund, okay. Trust account. I think at this point, you are very familiar with fund, isn't it? Fund accounting. So the main fund account is consolidated fund accounts. So this is the main one. Okay, so that's why you look at the reporting, this becomes the structure of the reporting. Okay, so you can see clearly that the source is from the Constitution as well as the Financial Procedures Act. Okay, you can see consolidated revenue account, loan account, trust account. So it makes sense why the account, the public account, or the government financial statement, okay, they follow this structure, okay, in terms of reporting. All right. So, okay, these are treasury instructions, okay, from time to time. Okay, besides the budget, there's also for the accounting operation. Okay, now we move on to MPSAS. Okay, I provide this link that you can check. There are two website basically providing the list of MPSAS. Okay, we have a quick look. All right, I think I used the second one. Okay. Oh, not link yet. Okay, never mind. Let's just copy. Right. Okay, so we have a quick look on the accounting standards. Okay. So these are the list of accounting standards in Malaysian government. So I think you can, get your copy. Yeah. Okay. So these are a number of the standards. So for this class, in the next, when we discuss on the thorough accounting, so we'll discuss a bit specific on certain standards, which is a bit, quite unique, okay, in the context of public sector organizations. Anyway, for the start, of course, the presentation of financial statement, I think you can tell that this will be, there are differences in terms of items, in terms of captions, okay, from both sides, possibly the asset, liability, as well as equity. Okay, and then the types of income, okay, expenditures, okay, so there's differences. And you look at number 9, okay, revenue from exchange transactions, we also will discuss that. Then number 17 for PPE, I think PPE is quite straightforward, except there are items. I think not only that, first is during the transition, so there are assets without records, and then the treatment, because there are also specific unique assets under PPE categories. I think that's interesting to highlight. And then look at 23, okay, revenue from non-exchange transactions. Okay, you don't have this in a MFRS, because non-exchange transactions specifically, tax and transfer. So it's categorized as revenue in the case of Malaysian and IFAC. Right, and then we'll discuss on the presentation of budget information. Yeah, generally in private sector, they don't show budget information because it's considered as internal. But for government, it's different because budget is the main source of their funding. So the presentation of the budget information is provided in the annual reports. And then we'll discuss lastly on 32, yeah, service concession arrangement for guarantors. This is quite unique. We talk about PFI, we talk about procurements. So there is service concession arrangement, then how to basically report that. The rest are quite similar, okay, to private sector. Okay, they have intangible assets, there are impairments, okay, and I think there are a few more like biological assets. Okay, of course, government also like biological assets, because it's quite unique for Malaysia. But then the government organizations like Tabung Haji, okay, they have these agriculture or biological assets, okay, under the Tabung Haji plantation. So this is becoming relevant. And definitely there are some government agencies at the state level that have plantation, okay, under possibly by Tulmal and a religious council. So it's a public sector assets. So, agriculture asset, but in terms of standards, it's very similar to the what is applicable to the private sector. Okay, any question, class? Everyone is here. So have a quick look, and I think it's good for the standards that we use for class discussion. Get a copy of that, okay, so that you can review them, you can follow the class discussion. Definitely, they are relevant for exams. Okay, question for chat. Good. You should ask question. Okay, now just a quick brief. I'm reviewing your videos. Okay, and soon I will share written. But generally, I'm very satisfied with the content, okay, of your presentation and the content of the discussion generally. But still, a few more groups have to review. Okay, right, structure of accounts in Government of Malaysia. Okay, so these are the main account to account for Federal Consolidated Fund. Requires that because under the Constitution, okay, all revenues and money, however raised or received by the Federation here means nation government, shall be paid into and form one fund to be known as Federal Consolidated Fund. Okay, so these are the main fund. So what in Malay, what fund means? What is a fund? Anyone picked it up? Fund in Malay.
Dana.
Okay, but for public sector accounting, so what fund that used as a term used by the Minister of Finance, okay, by the generally in the public sector fund?
Peruntukan?
Peruntukan is allocation. If you quickly KWSP, isn't it? So what? Employee Provident Fund become KWSP. So what is that K? Anyone?
Kumpulan.
Yeah,
kumpulan wang simpanan pekerja.
Yeah, fund is kumpulan wang. Kumpulan wang. Okay? Kumpulan wang. So it's not dana. Of course, fund is dana generally. You can use dana or you can use kumpulan wang. But in public sector accounting, it's kumpulan wang. Okay? So when you see kumpulan wang, so don't get excited. It's basically fund. And here they call it Federal Consolidated Fund. Okay, so these are the structure of the accounts. So you can see clearly under consolidated funds, there are 3 accounts: revenue, trust, and loan. So I think it's not surprising where this the source of these categories is basically clearly mentioned, I think, in the Constitution as well as in the Financial Procedures Act. Okay, so 3 fund or 3 account need to be provided. So you can see, but in a way you can understand this. We bring this restricted fund and unrestricted fund, so you can tell. So most likely the unrestricted fund is which account? Revenue, trust, or loan? Class? You still remember restricted, unrestricted? Oh, forgot already. Anyone? Are you following? Okay. Right. Oh, let me see the answer. Sometimes they like to answer. Oh, no answer also. Okay. So quickly, yeah. So revenue account, yeah, is you can say that is general account. So all the money, so that's why you get all the revenues being accounted under revenue account. And then in the revenue account, that's where they draw the budget, the operation budget, the operational budget. Okay, so the supply bill, so mainly is withdrawn from the revenue account. Okay, so you can see under this, these are perbelanjaan bekalan, is supply bill. Okay, now being passed. Okay, now it's moving to the House of Senate. Okay, but the House of Representatives already passed third reading. And so if you look at emolument, service supply, acquisition of assets, subsidies, so some are specifically for organizations, some very general. Look at subsidies, subsidy for petroleum, for food, for sugar, so many subsidies. And then there are charge expenditure. It's like fixed expenditure to royal, for pension, debt service, okay, court orders and others. Okay, I think generally for commissions, generally it's under charge expenditure. We have commissions, election commission, police commissions, education commission. Okay, so there are specific fundings for that. And then there are also transfer. If you look at from revenue account, there is transfer. So the next is trust account. So I think trust account, you clearly, is it unrestricted or restricted? Normally trust. Restricted fund or unrestricted fund?
Restricted.
Anyone? Unrestricted or restricted?
Restricted.
Restricted. Okay, so trust is restricted. So that's why you can see there is transfer. Okay, transfer from revenue account to government trust fund. Okay, that's one. So once they become from general, unrestricted, and move to the restricted. Okay, so that's why I think if you look at the flow, it's only one way. You never go outside. Okay, from the trust account, because trust account is restricted and very specific. Housing loan. So housing loan is for definitely for the government servants. And there are 2 sources of the housing loan fund. One is from the supply, the revenue. The other is from loan account. Okay, I think specifically because to support housing loan for the government's civil servant. I think quite substantial nowadays. I mean, the loan that a civil servant can take. Okay, I think demonstrating the house price nowadays. Okay, I think they increase the ceiling up to 500,000 or 600,000. Okay, and then the contribution for development fund. So this development is for development budget. So you can see clearly the development budget is a trust, considered as a trust account, right? So but the source is from the revenue. There's a transfer from revenue account to development fund, as well as loan. But if you look at the budget, generally you can expect that the big chunk of the development fund is basically coming from domestic loans. Right, and then you can see also at the bottom there, there are through the development fund, development expenditure, but there are 2 types. One is direct expenditure, the other is loans to government agencies. So you can see that under the development fund, the funding to the agencies, they provide two ways. So one is a direct expenditure, the other is in the form of loans. But once it's given in the form of loans, so there is a repayment. So what will be the rate and all others? Generally, very low, around 4%. They consider that service charge. And if you look at this, and what kind of projects that basically given loans? So most likely commercial type projects, or projects that can generate revenue. So these are type of projects that instead of giving direct expenditure or direct funding, so this kind of project will be given loans, so that because then they can repay. Because at the end, I think I saw all of you are aware that government funding is very limited. Nowadays, the debt limit is always increasing. But then, of course, the services to the public are massive. All funds are needed. Okay, they have to prioritize. So this kind of repayments of loan can help to the government, so that they can finance other projects. Okay, so then you can expect they keep these three accounts. And then in terms of reporting also, this will become the basis, okay, for the reporting. And of course, for today, our discussion, the reporting is still under cash basis accounting, okay. And then the next class, we discuss on the accrual. Because since the annual report based on the accrual is not out yet, okay, so what will be the final products? In any case, we'll discuss on the pro forma financial statements and all that, as you know, as a basis for our understanding what kind of statements will be issued based on the accrual environment. Okay, so as mentioned, there are three accounts under Federal Consolidated Fund, Revenue, Trust, and Loan. These are the source of the provisions. Right, consolidated revenue, they collect all revenues and money received by federal or state, okay, including tax revenue, non-tax revenue, okay. So if you look at this, there are also non-revenue and receipts from federal territories. So take note of that, because not only tax, based on tax, there are other revenue. If you look at this, later on, it becomes also the basis of our discussion when we discuss on the relevant accounting standards. Okay, have a quick look at this source of government revenue. Okay, tax revenue, duties, direct tax, and indirect tax. Big chunk of that, of course, tax, okay, corporate tax, personal tax, and then but custom duties and all that also very big. Then on top of that, there are petroleum tax and then non-tax revenue as well as revenue from federal territories. So FT is federal territories. That's why it become under directly accounted, although it's a local government or state, a kind of state government, but it is directly accounted under the federal government accounts. Okay, right. Okay, state revenue, then local government. So state, I think, basically mainly on from the lands, and then including the Islamic religious revenue. But Islamic religious revenue is quite confusing because it's not basically under the state. Of course, it is collected or managed in the state, but basically managed by Islamic Religious Council. Is separately managed from the State Assembly, except that possibly in the governance, state members of State Assembly will be in the Majlis Agama, or they work closely. Okay, so I mean, I would believe that different states have different a bit slightly differences in how they practice in terms of the management of Islamic matters, because there are directly entity under the Sultan, but there are also entity like Jabatan Agama. All these are entity under the State Assembly. Okay, local government revenues, right? So I think local government is like a corporate by itself, because generally there are, as I think, as we discussed, definitely for the city council, these are relatively independent, financially independent local government. but district, okay, district area, municipal, some of them they are not that have that financial independence, because they're not able to manage or to collect a good amount of revenues. Then definitely the funding can come from state government as well as federal government. I think last time, I think federal government also sometime from time to time, particularly if the state changed government from ruling party to the opposition, and then the ruling government somehow can have their financial relationships with the local government. Okay, that's why I think was one of the reasons we have the local government ministry. Yeah? Okay, charge expenditures. Okay, so you can see here, Auditor General is basically directly funded through charge expenditures. Royal, Election Commission, all commissions are basically under charge expenditures. Okay, now we move on to the trust account. Okay, the first, I think if you look at this, we discuss on 6, okay, the main one. And so government become trustee basically, yeah. So to look after the money, and as we discussed, these are kind of restricted fund. Okay, the first one is development fund to account for loans for the purpose of development, and as well as revenue contribution. Yeah? As well as we look at housing loan, to provide housing loan facilities to government employees. And then definitely, you should your understanding about restricted funds. Okay, so for specific purpose, so that understanding is important. So government trust fund, okay, contribution from government. Okay, there are 5 major: clearance account, trading account, loan account, contingency fund, including the pension trust fund. So pension, because government, civil servant generally, they are under pension scheme. Okay, particularly those are in the ministries as well as in the departments. They are under pension scheme, then government providing this pension fund. And okay, so I think that's why they call it government trust, because the contribution mainly basically from the government funding. And then opposite of the government trust fund is public trust fund. The account for trust money entrusted to federal government and special trust fund incorporated under relevant acts. But because the source is basically public money, so the government cannot simply use the money because it's not unrestricted, like taxation, for instance. Taxation is, the government can use based on their priorities. But in the case of public trust, of course, the money from the public, but it's not like taxation. So government cannot just use indiscriminately. So they must honor, okay, the trust. Okay, deposits. All right, I think so many deposits. I would believe that bailout monies, or in the court case, possibly they put under deposits, or maybe there are various. If you look at government, even at hospital, always before you provide the service, you have the deposit money. I think all those should be accounted under deposits. And accounts payable, okay, they categorize under trust account, because I think in a way that is putting aside. So what is accounts payable? But in the cash environment, it's quite unique to have accounts payable, because of course you're representing liability. But you look at, this is basically the results of modified cash accounting, where the accounts keep open, but they keep that as an accounts payable. Represent the amount of owing to suppliers of goods and services as at 31st December, for which payment were made in January. Okay, so it's basically the liability, but it's counted under the trust account. Right, that's all. I think I just shared. There's one more fund. They call it National Trust Fund Account. Okay, or Kumpulan Wang Amanah Negara. It is in the media, right? I think even there was a suggestion because of COVID to use the money under this Kumpulan Wang National Trust Fund. Kumpulan Wang Amanah Negara. It's a kind of trust fund. Okay. I think we'll look at the annual reports. It's just that, okay, because the month, if you look at the 2016, is in the financial statement. So this is the annual reports. But if you look at the governance, the chairman is used to be the CEO of Petronas. So sounds like it's a fund, for specific purpose. But the fact that you put it under the National Trust Fund, okay, so really you have to look at the terms of this trust fund. Okay, a bit, I think the objective is in the Malay. They basically for the natural resources of the country. I think to make sure that the management of it in a good hand, right? I just want to show a quick, I think the fund in 2016, the balance is still quite a lot. So where's the account? Yeah, the total asset was 16 billion. Okay, 16 billion in the form of financial assets. So so this fund need to be managed properly. So it's an example. So there are so many funds in the government, okay, that they manage. Okay, now we move to consolidated loan account. So to account for loans, basically. I think we discussed on the source. And the big chunk of the government loans is basically based on government securities, okay, dominated under Malaysian ringgit. That is considered as local loans. Right, now we move on to financial reporting in Malaysian government. In this discussion, still cash environment, the report later on, but before that we'll see the provision in the constitutions. So if you look at the constitutions, require federal government to submit, so far as it's practicable, the statement of asset and liabilities of the federal last financial year. So if you look at the constitution, okay, for the statement of financial positions is quite, very broad. Okay, so cash as well as accrual accounting can accommodate this provision. Okay, because the word used is statement of assets and liabilities. Okay, but how in the cash environment, how AG or government basically translate this into the practice. Okay, so we'll see later on. But in other words, if the Malaysian government, I think now they are doing basically a transition. And now I think it's still, I remember possibly in the final stage where they prepare their accounts based on accrual. So there is no need of amendment in terms of constitution. But I heard that there will be amendments in the Financial Process Act. And as far as constitution itself, I think with this clause is a very broad. It can accommodate accrual accounting. Okay, basis for financial reporting. Right, these are the reports. Okay, statements of revenue accounts, loan, trust. Okay, and statement of accounts of fund other than accounted here. So there also, they call it statement of asset and liabilities, because these are the cash environment where the statement of the financial statements cannot cover or include other asset and liabilities other than cash. Then they have separate statement of asset and liabilities. So we'll see later on. Okay, so this also for annual reports for statutory bodies. Okay, it need to be accounted as well. Okay, now we move on to the example. So we see the federal government annual reports. You look at the relevant website in the AG. Okay, so FG, federal government financial statements. So the latest is 2019. Yeah, I think this one is just recently. So you can download for your studies. I download for 2018. Okay, it's quite big because representing consolidated accounts for the government. Okay, so just quickly, I think just now we can have a look. All right, so there's a copy that I already downloaded for 2018. Yeah, 2019. Okay. But I think 2019 still cash. But since it's there, where is it? Oh, hold on. Oh, yeah, yes, this is on this side. All right. Yeah, I think you can see, but I also haven't checked yet either it is prepared under accrual or under cash still, 2019. Okay, I think you can check later. Maybe we can discuss in the next class. Anyway, we just look at 2018 first because for today's discussion still on the financial statement based on the cash accounting or modified cash accounting. Okay, these are the annual reports. I think you can have a look. Right, the preparer is clearly mentioned. Okay, of course, this 2019 based on the previous government. Okay, the YB Lim Guan Eng was still the minister, and the chief, the accountant general is Datuk Sahad. And it's okay. So I think he already retired, and now is the new AG is Dr. Ramli. Dr. Ramli, isn't it? Okay, so I think he's deputy. But generally now AG from UKM grads. Used to be, I think, from UM. And now UKM is basically from, one candidate to another. The previous one also UKM, Dato' San also from UKM. So soon I hope that URA will take over, right? Because we also have our alumni in, not take over, I mean, have the opportunity to become AG. But yeah, UITM also in the leagues, okay, to lead this AG. Right. So okay, I think we look at quickly on the English side. These are the reports. I think the English is on the bottom. Okay, yeah. So this is the English side. I think they provide dual language. So you can, of course, government are very good in helping in having all this dashboard type graph. I think as I mentioned, it's a good skill for you to have these skills of data analytics types of presentation. Okay, based on big data information. I think I will share that Tableau software later, or Tableau to you later on for self-learning. Okay, let us quickly see the accounts. Okay, these are the accounts. The auditor, see, these are the general audit, auditor general opinion. Okay, Datuk Ning Azman, auditor general. Okay, these are the accounts. I think you can read the explanation and all that. But I think for us, for discussion, we just look at the accounts. Okay, where's the account? Okay. Yes. Okay, these are the statement of financial position for 2018. Okay, so 2000. Yeah, because us it's 2018. So you can see they call it public money. The assets. Public money, so in terms of cash. So you can see there are two items only in the financial position, cash and investment. So both are basically cash convertibles, assets, okay? And only two. Then with the fund balance. So this is basically fund balance. So fund balance, consolidated fund, but the fund balance in these three accounts: revenue, loan, and trust. Okay, so there are 52 million in total for these three accounts, and it's represented by this investment. Obviously, of course, government need to generate. Other than the need to use for salary, okay, they have to invest the excess, the surplus fund. So if you look at this, so basically, these are fund balance. You look at loan account, these are fund balance in loan account. So in other words, it is not a liability by itself. It's just that these two are basically restricted account. okay, loan account and trust, so restricted accounts or restricted fund, then these are fund balance in this account. Okay, so so that's why you can see, yeah, in other words, it's like 15 million left to repay for the loan, isn't it? Or 25 million that is held in the trust account. Okay, but in terms of assets, cash, they're all consolidated. Right, and then with that, okay, there are statement of cash and receipts, right? It looks like basically cash statement, yeah? In general, right? You can have a look, okay, and then they have statement of financial performance, okay, where they show the revenue, operating expenditure, okay, and then there's a revenue surplus, okay, and then they cover the development and show the deficit. So those students are basically, you have your topics on deficit, right? Budget deficit, right? This one is actual deficit. Of course, this deficit will be financed by, how to finance the deficit? Will be financed by class. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how the
Loan.
government
Financed by central bank.
Loans.
financed by the central banks, financed by the loan, managed by the central banks. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Loan is a government loan, a government, yeah, but that managed by the central bank. You're right.
So can they do it by selling bonds?
Yeah, that's basically they're selling bonds. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at loans and external assistance, 54. Okay, if you look at memorandum, note number 6. Right. So basically, mainly loans, managed by bonds. Sorry, bonds. Managed by. So you can see that. So the main loans is Treasury bill, okay, GIS, securities, and sukuk. So all loans. These are all managed by Bank Negara, okay, by the central bank. So loans are not. They are not loans from central bank, because central bank also is government agency. Okay, they're not independent. In Malaysia, central bank is part of government. Okay, of course they should be. Yeah, they're part of government. Okay, they're not independent like in the US, or in this other country possibly. But they are part of government. So they are managing the government debts. Okay. Because of sukuk and all that. Okay, so that is the financial performance, okay, revenue. So you can see from this clearly that you can see the revenue basically to cover the operating expenditure generally. Okay, that's the practice. So if they want for development, that's the always they take loans. So of course, I mean they have to plan for it. Otherwise, if it is keep on increasing, then the deficit will be increasing, the debt level of the country will be increasing. Okay, so they have to manage properly. Okay, so right on top of that, there is a statement of asset and liabilities. They call it statement of memorandum accounts. Okay, so memorandum of assets. Okay, but you can see that account receivable 86 billion and investment 31 billion. So very big account receivable. But this one, you can look at this too. Even in the cash environment, the asset is financial assets. Okay, so they don't have physical assets. So modified cash. Okay, so of course this modified cash, but together with the memorandum accounts, okay, it's very close to a modified accrual. Okay, because in modified accrual they don't have physical assets. Okay, but of course, I mean, if you look at liabilities as well. Federal debt. I think these are the basis to compute the federal debts. Of course, if you take together with the commitments, I think definitely including guarantees and all that. So it exceeds 1 trillion. But financial commitment, sometimes government also become guarantor for various insurance and commitment of the projects. Okay, but all these projects are viable projects. Then government guarantees certain deposits and all that. So we have to look at the quality of asset that they are basically become guarantors. If it is not issued, that's why in terms of computations of government debts, these are basically the level that is being used. But of course, the opposition always take that government, the 1 trillion as a basis for debate. Anyway, liabilities are liabilities. Okay, there are commitments, there are potential commitments that can be translated to future payments. So need to be managed properly. So these are reported under the statement of memorandum accounts, not in the statement of financial position. So very different. In the cash environment, okay, in the cash environment. So that's why they have this. Okay, you can read all the notes. Okay, I also would like to highlight. So they mention clearly modified cash basis accounting in the notes. Okay, so of course, very simple term, but very significant in terms of practice. Okay, modified cash basis of accounting. So it's there in practice. Okay, any question? That is the annual report. Go through, get yourself familiar. Because possibly in the future, you are the one who will prepare the accounts, right? I think many of our students also, alumni, some of them, they are in the industry, then they go join the accountants general. Also auditor general, as an opportunity for employment. Okay. Prepared by accountant general, certified by auditors general. The Malaysian government annual report. Okay. Used to be named as public accounts. Now they call it Malaysian government annual reports. Laid before Parliament, detailed and summary report. Okay, they provide two types. One are detailed, where you can see all the. I think if you want to see how much URA is our university get the funding, you can see in the reports. As a statutory body or agency under the, you go and check under the Ministry of Education. In the previous year, possibly it was one, isn't it? Yeah, it was one. So you can expect that it's under Ministry of Education. Otherwise, it will be under the Ministry of Higher Education. And then you can see URA, how much the budget is received and how much was spent. And other universities as well. All right, and then we move on. Okay, the content. Sorry, the content. These are the content of the annual reports, balance sheet, or statement of financial position, memorandum. I think we already see this in the actual reports. Okay, I think we already see this as well. Right, so memorandum accounts, memorandum asset and liabilities, policies. Right, on top of the ministries and departments, there are also financial accounting framework for Malaysian statutory bodies. So statutory bodies like RISDA, okay. I think most commission also sometimes they also has that statutory body status. And then what else? Yeah, tabung haji, okay. And mostly, if you look at all government public universities, they are all basically statutory bodies other than URA. URA, we are a limited company, right? For some reason, because that time, if you want to be under the AUKU, the medium of instruction should be in Malay. But then you are in the medium of instruction plan to be in English. That's why I think they have to maneuver the legal system. So one of the way is establishing the university through companies under the companies commission. Anyway, so statutory bodies is they be a bit more flexible. Okay, if you look at the accounting standards that they can comply with MFRS. They can use MPSAS or MPERS, and because they have the SAGA as the reporting framework or guidelines provided by AG. So that's why you can see that okay, they can even MPERS, but generally I think if they want to show high level of accounting practice, if they don't use MPSA, they should use MFRS. Okay, but there are also instances where the statutory bodies, they use MPERS. You know the difference, isn't it? MFRS and MPERS. Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Right. For Saga, okay, these are guidelines. I think you can see this. I think the idea is to standardize, because since statutory bodies, they are autonomous body, so they can use their own over-the-shelf accounting system, as well as and then even if they are financially independent, they can like Felda, for instance. So if they are quite strong in terms of financial position, they can develop their own accounting system. But it's quite difficult if they want to be consolidated. That's why, and to be controlled by the AG. At the end, of course, AG will monitor. So that's why they need a standardized coding of the chart of accounts. So that's why they developed this Saga. But anyway, there is a guidelines. We can have a look. Okay, directly from AG. These are the guidelines for them to develop Saga and what need to be done. If they develop their accounting software, but in terms of coding of the assets, see the categories can need to be provided according to what is being prescribed by the AG. Okay, so have a look. Okay, some recent issues in financial reporting public sector, cases of huge impairment of asset in Malaysian statutory bodies. In case of Tabung Haji, 1.51 billion impairment losses. And then Felda Global Venture, 2.2 billion impairment losses in 2017. Okay, such impairment possible under accrual-based accounting. Yeah? So it's quite, if you look at impairments, the way impairments has been executed, and if the assets are not performing well, so I think, you see, because once you recorded losses, it's quite difficult, isn't it? In the case of Tabung Haji, with these impairment losses, it became a justification for the government then to transfer the assets of Tabung Haji to special vehicle company. Okay, 17 billion worth of asset being transferred, and some of them being disposed. Okay, there are pros and cons of that, but as we discussed in this class, since Tabung Haji is a restricted fund, so make sure that all the benefits, and these are the most viable option that was available at that time, to make sure that the interests of the members of Tabung Haji will be served accordingly, for the Tabung Haji to discharge his accountability. Okay, so but what I'm saying is, in a way that is possibly it also reflecting a bad investment, okay, that need to be dealt with. So these can be highlighted under accrual-based accounting. Yeah? But if it is, of course, with MFRS, it's more stringent, better accounting standard. I mean, in both ways. I think that's why this all based on judgment. Still remain to be seen. Okay, the impact of all this impairment and others, because at the end, statutory bodies are unlike private sector, where they are basically serving the shareholders. Mostly, these are public shareholders based on dividends. So annual return is very one of the main criteria. But for the government agencies, should they behave like the listed company? So these are possibly debate and need to be further discussed or been understood by you, so that they can, for the future, people can manage this institution much better. All right. Any question?
So, the
Yes.
Saga standard, meaning public sectors are not using standards, MFRS standards, is it?
For statutory bodies, that's why, as I mentioned, for statutory bodies, for government, okay, like ministries and departments, they use MPSAs. But for statutory bodies, they have three options: FRS, MPSAS, and MPERS. Okay, so they can use MPERS, but if I think it depends, it will be depending on their activities. If they're, I think if their activities are related to more commercial type of activities, development, okay, and then they have businesses, maybe they should adopt MFRS. Okay, but if their activities a bit more towards very reflecting the core services in public service, then they can use MPSAS. But in any case, the governor, the board of directors of the specific body, okay, they can decide which one they have the option to use. In practice, I think there are certain bodies using MFRS, MPSAS, and MPERS. So SAGA is basically providing the framework. Okay, once they use all these standards, but here also there is referring to how they develop their chart of accounts, basically the accounting system itself, covering under SAGA. Okay, SAGA is like the policy provided for the statutory bodies, accounting policy. Okay. Any other question?
So what kind of fund is IMF?
IMF.
Yeah.
International Monetary Fund.
So it's not like, it's not government or what kind of
Okay, International Monetary Fund is like, it's an international body. I think supported by countries, by countries. Okay, of course, it's based in the Washington DC. Not yet. Last time when I studied there, the office is not that far from my campus, right? World Bank, IMF. Of course, they have, I think, in terms of their workers, all economists or staff across the globe. But if I'm not mistaken, the main funder is still, I think, the US government. Of course, the name is International Monetary Fund because they provide financing. Financing for, I think IMF is more for commercial development. Okay, if the country is in a to stimulate the economy of the country, then the function of IMF. Generally, these two body, international body, have that function. The World Bank, they focusing on financing the infrastructure. Okay, whereas IMF is more on towards the economy in general. But they have a very tight policy, economic policy. That's why last time when our country facing the economic crisis, so IMF wanted to give funding, but refused by our government because of the economic policy is very restricted. There are pros and cons of that. By that time, I think definitely our country, that time with Tun Mahathir, isn't it? He made a decision. Instead of getting funding from IMF, so he's basically decided pegging the Malaysian ringgit to US dollar, okay, to reduce the volatility of the currency exchange. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions afterwards. And even by IMF, of course, that time they took the opportunities so that they can have control for the economic policy of the country. I think in terms of fund means that they have the money to fund the government to develop the right economic policy and then to develop the country. So that one with IMF. And the other is World Bank. World Bank is more on funding the infrastructure, the roads, including if the country is in a very bad shape in terms of institutional structure. Okay, for instance, in the case of Afghanistan, for instance, when the accounting infrastructure is still not there. Okay, I think with the collapse of the government, because there were. Do we have any Afghanistan student here? This class? No, China. So I mean, I take this as an example so that we have an idea. So what happened was I think they have no structure at all in terms of accounting infrastructure. Okay, in terms of the statutes, okay, in terms of professional bodies, in terms of practice, okay, in terms of education. So they need to provide, because accounting is such an important area, so just like law and engineering and others, to develop the country. So World Bank was basically funding, okay, the establishment of the professional body and others, including the education. So I think we are fortunate for our department. We have a group of consultants basically consulting on the establishment of accounting degree in Afghanistan. Okay, so the World Bank is funding the project. So you can see their role. Okay. Any other questions? How do the federal government record for borrowing they give out to state government? Does it mean that it adds the burden of liability of the federal government? Okay. Right. Yeah, so, okay, how to answer your question? Okay, that is true, isn't it? The federal, the state government receiving loans from federal government is possible, one of the options. Okay, of course, when they say borrowing, I think there are so many instances. If the state government was so weak financially, they can also borrow from, and even the state grants that they receive from the federal not sufficient, then they can take loans from the federal government. Of course, these are basically relationships between federal government and state government. I think there were instances, I can't remember, was it Kelantan or other states? So they take, I think the grants, the annual grants was not sufficient, so they take loans. But loans mean, of course, they have to repay. But not much, not much. It's not like billions of dollars, it's more on hundreds of millions. Does it mean that it adds the burden of liability to the federal government? Yes, if the source of funding of that loans is basically from that the federal government have to take extra liability have to issue additional debts, instruments, definitely that will be a burden for the federal government. But I think if you look at the amount, it's not that much. And on top of that, federal government has huge debts. Then I don't. There was never an issue like, it caused a serious burden to the federal government. But of course, for the political debate and issues, they definitely, particularly if the state government belong to opposition, then the federal government ministers can always, it's like, it's part of their political debate. Okay. Any other questions? All right, so if no question, I will end this class. All right, so make sure you, can start doing your assignment too. Okay, as mentioned, generally in terms of content, your presentation for group 1 generally okay. I mean, some groups are very good. Okay, and in terms of presentation, there's varies. Some very innovative. Okay, so try to and try to avoid because I think I've observed some of the groups, they just the PowerPoints that they use in the presentation of the video, they also use that as a written report. That one, of course, I give very minimal marks. Because I mentioned that written report should so this it's not it shouldn't be like the same material. Of course you must add whatever a better presentation of the written report. Okay, just a quick note since I now in the process of finalizing the review. Okay, so with that note, I end this with wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.